Hey, Sean G here from Chasing the Truth. You're about to get some of the best of samples of shows I've done over the last 5 years. God bless y'all and enjoy.
At that particular time, I looked around to make sure that there were no flowers to create that smell. And this was after the first frost, and all of the flowers had been frozen, dead, and so that could not have been the source. But I did smell lavender there, and I captured a photo of a woman looking out from the church. So I can't help but wonder if that was her. But I've felt the cold chill down my spine when I've photographed the Williamsburg jail and a few of the other places. But I would have to say my most profound experience was on a road called Crawford Road. And I would have to say, in my subjective opinion, that's one of the most haunted roads in the country. So let me give you a little bit of background so that you understand where I'm coming from. So Crawford Road, it runs right through a part of the battlefield that was in Yorktown, and it's where the French forces were stationed when they were bombarding the English forces right before the Yorktown victory. And so there were obviously French soldiers killed in that area and buried in that area also. Now, in the Civil War, this was an area where the Union forces were stationed when they were bombarding Yorktown because the Confederate forces were stationed in Yorktown. So obviously there's going to be Civil War dead there. There's also been stories of lynchings along that road, and some people have claimed to have seen as an apparition lots of African Americans hanging from different trees as they drove down the road. And if all of that were not enough, since 1990 there have been 4 murders on that road. And so quite a bit of paranormal activity is said to go on there. Now, the story that goes to that road is that there was a young bride that was very unhappy about who she had to marry, and she decided that rather than marry this person, she escaped from the wedding party and she ran down the road and she hung herself off of the bridge there. And so what people say happens is when you drive your car under the bridge at night only, not in the daytime, but at night, that the battery will cut off, it will drain for a few seconds, the engine will shut off, and you will hear a loud thump on the roof of the car. And you look back through the rearview mirror and you will see a woman hanging there in a bridal gown. So that said, with all of those paranormal experiences in the background, I went there to try to get some photos of anything and anything that I could. I was hoping particularly to be able to capture the photo of the bride hanging herself, but I wasn't able to do that. But one interesting thing happened to me there. It was the first time that I ever heard a vocalization of the paranormal. And while I was there photographing the place, this was late at night, I actually heard a woman scream 3 times. And I had a couple other guys with me at the time, and we all discussed it. And what it sounded like to us was that she was running and she screamed these 3 times. The third time that she screamed, it almost sounded as if she had been caught. At least that's the impression that we got. Now, the strange part about these screams is not only did we all hear them, not only were they very loud, but instead of sounding like they came from the ground, they sounded like they came from about 20 to 30 feet up in the trees. So we tried to look up in the trees to see if we could see anything, but as you can probably guess, there was nothing there. And I was not able to photograph any woman at that site that at least I could identify as a woman. But it gives me chills just to think about hearing that woman screaming and knowing that somewhere in time that something happened to that woman and nobody can help her, and she's evidently reliving that experience to us when we were there.
So it's sort of like caught in a loop kind of deal, that you just walked in, or your friends and yourself just came in and sort of walked into like a recording of what had happened prior there at that site that you were at.
I suppose what they call that stone tape theory.
Yeah, it usually happens around like granite or some hard stone like that, from what I understand. But yeah, I've run into that a couple of times. What was the oldest confirmed photo that you took a picture of some entity and compared it to someone else? What was the oldest photo or admission that this was the person? What was the oldest photo of the person that you took a picture of that you could confirm was dead? And I guess how long they had been dead prior to you taking the photo.
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't compare this to a photo, but I can compare it to a story. Okay.
Oh, sure.
So, 18th century, sometime in the late 18th century, is when this person supposedly lived and died, and he was at the Peyton Randolph House in Colonial Williamsburg, which is, by the way, one of the most haunted in the state, if not the East Coast. And ironically, that was the first face of a person that I ever captured. And so I was both elated and disappointed in the face that I captured, because you could clearly see the eyes and the hair, but the area around the nose and the mouth, it was black and mottled.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand why. So I did some research, and what I found out was that in the 18th century, an unidentified man that evidently knew the Randolphs was invited or walked into the house, and in one area downstairs, he was so distraught that he pulled out a pistol and shot himself in the mouth. So he committed suicide there, and I have what appears to be a man that has blown away part of his face in the photo. So I would have to say that late 18th century is the earliest that I've ever had a confirmed photo of a specific individual, although no, I don't have that person's name. But
okay.
It is documented that the man came in there and shot himself in the mouth.
Wow. Have you captured anything like an aboriginal entity or demon or anything of that nature, or has it always been specific to the relative history of the area that you've been in?
No, I've captured some bizarre stuff, stuff that I don't have any explanation for. For example, at the Peyton Randolph house, I captured something that looks more and more like an animal or possibly a demon than it does human.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever people see that, I say, I'm not going to try to tell you what that is. You have to form your own conclusions, because I really have no idea. But that said, I've had other instances. Now let's go back to the Aboriginal. This was an interesting group of photos that I captured in my new book, and it was almost by accident that
Hey folks, thanks for listening to this best of sample of some of my 5 years in doing this radio show podcast called Chasing the Truth. Please visit iamdarkwaters.com, or you can email me at seang@iamdarkwaters.com. And my numbers and links are in the description below. God bless y'all, and I'll catch you on the flip side.